Hey everyone, Cal from Alberta Hilton here. Here's a series of tastings that I think you're going to be excited about. We are going to do a little bit of best of the best tasting, taking the style that started it all and then tasting kind of the leading examples in that style that we have in the store. So we're going to start this out at kind of the logical point. In April 2017, Blindman Brewing out of Lacombe introduced their New England Pale Ale, and it changed everything in Alberta. Everyone makes a New England Pale. All across Canada, the hazy IPA category has become just the market leader. Now, that beer now is almost 4 years old. What's changed in 4 years? Is it still king of the hill, or can some of the new contenders take it down? So for our challengers this time, we're going to have Cabin Super Saturation, the Establishment Afternoon Delight, and the 88 Brewing Night Gallery. Really interesting, different lineup of really, really big hits for us, but which one's the best? Well, we're going to find out. All that coming up April the 7th at 6 o'clock. NEPA Battle Royale? Sure.
Media Boutique.
Big hits for us, but which one's the best? Hey everyone, Guy with Andrew Hilton Wine and Spirits here. We are going to be doing a little bit of head-to-head New England Pale Ale Challenge tonight. Now, New England Pale and the hazy IPA category has really taken off these last kind of 4 or 5 years, with the Blindman New England Pale leading the charge. And since this is our reference beer, let's start here. Now, this is the Blindman New England Pale, or NEPA, or if you like, New England IPA. I've heard it called all kinds of things. Early on, it was that Blindman beer in the white can that no one was able to get. Before I dig into a little of the history and some of the other styles around me here, I want to talk a little about how impossible this beer was to get in 2017. This would come in and we'd be limited to 4 or 5 flats, and it would be gone the day it arrived. And we'd have people here the next morning saying, hey, I heard you had like lots of this yesterday. It's like, we did, yesterday. It went so incredibly quickly. I actually was able to get a 30-liter keg of this for my wedding, which was that August. They actually told me I wasn't allowed to tell anyone until like the day of the wedding, only at the wedding. No social media, no comments, no nothing, that I actually managed to get a 30-liter keg of this because they were that rare at the time. And then that kicked off kind of the second big IPA craze. Pre this beer coming out, you know, IPA was still the market-leading category among craft beers in Canada. It was a properly big deal, but it wasn't what it is now 4 years later, where IPAs, particularly East Coast hazy IPAs, absolutely lead the craft beer category. And for Alberta, at least, it all starts right here. So let's jump into this. Also, to the person who phoned a little before the tasting, about 2 minutes ago, and asked why we weren't actually doing the malt liquor tasting, A, thank you for watching the promos, and B, sorry if you were confused. That really was entirely designed to just be a off-the-cuff April Fool's thing. Yeah, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, but that was never supposed to be serious. I do apologize. Okay, so what separates this from some of the others? Lower alcohol than a lot of your West Coast IPAs. We're down at 5.5 here. The Night Gallery and the Afternoon Delight both clock in right around 5.5, and the Super Saturation tops the list at a full 6%. This is a good deal lower than old school IPAs, which were kind of 7.5. It's also quite cloudy. Now, this is due to 2 things. One is the addition of flaked oats into the actual brewing mash, as well as a little bit of wheat malt. The other is the fact that the beer is completely unfiltered, completely unpasteurized, and the overwhelming majority of the hops that were dumped into the actual boil were done right at the tail end. So we are really minimizing bitterness, because the longer you boil a hop, the more bitterness you'll get out of it. The shorter a time you boil those hops, especially if you add them just as you're ending the boil, what's called a knockout addition, those hops will actually have lots of aroma and character, but you don't get that preservative effect. So one of the things about New England IPA is it could never be the first IPA style to hit the market, because those early IPAs, and we talked about this when we did kind of the history of West Coast IPAs, and we talked about Anchor Liberty Ale and Red Racer IPA and Tree Hophead, those early IPAs, they were really challenging for a lot of people. And far before IPA became the market-leading style that it is now, you couldn't do these because they wouldn't sell fast enough. They would go off. To sell New England style pale ales, you have to have a high turnover and an ability for all of your customers to always keep them cold. This couldn't be like the old AGLC days when everything was kept, warm and on the floor. New England pale ales don't like that. And yeah, Craig, I think a lot of us were that sad customer. I even owned the store and I was that sad customer occasionally. This beer was absolutely insane. Now, in the mouth, it's exactly what we'd expect. You get that big, rich kind of oat and wheat malt mouthfeel right there. The beer has, some malt backbone, but you're really here for the showpiece is the hops. It's pretty, it's bright, it's juicy. You get that little bit of grapefruit, but you also get stone fruit like apricots. I was originally going to say peach, but I actually get more apricots than anything else. Apricot may be leading into mango as well. Carbonation on this beer, and I don't know if this is a hazy IPA thing or this is just a Blindman thing, and I guess we'll find out as we go through. But I find the carbonation on this a lot softer than I would expect from West Coast IPA. If I reference, say, Breakside Wanderlust IPA in my head, for example, I get much more of a bright, upfront, not a coarser bubble necessarily, but kind of a little more of a CO2 hit along with the greater hop bitterness of more of a West Coast style. So this kind of gentler, softer style, really classic for this New England Pale Ale. Just checking comments here, everybody. And that'll teach us for doing practice, it's true. Yes, Blindman's New England Pale has been available all year. I don't think there's been, other than like a hot weekend where we just sell out, I don't think we've been out of it for a long period this year. That's not to say we haven't been out of other Blindman. That coffee stout that came out in the little tiny cans right around Christmas that were absolutely adorable, those were in and out of here in like a weekend. So there are certainly Blindman one-offs that sell out very quickly still, but this hasn't been jumping out of here. It still sells well, but not to the point where it's sold out for weeks at a time. What did I remember? Very little. Yeah, passion fruit's a great call as well. Passion fruit, mango, apricot, lots of tropical fruit. And again, I'm just going to contrast this again against the classic West Coast style, which was really all most people were aware of in Alberta when this came out. Certainly I was. It was grapefruit, pine, lime, just general citrus, spruce. It was a little bit one-dimensional compared to this style. So let's talk a little tiny bit about that history. I don't actually have a can of Alchemist Heady Topper around. I do have the next best thing. I have a bottle of Hill Farmstead around the store. This is one of our kind of trophy bottles that lives above our singles beer fridge. Heady Topper came out in 2004, very quietly. It very quickly became a bit of a sensation in kind of the Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate New York area, but it really started hitting the mainstream of like beer consciousness around 2007, 2008, largely because the more famous at the time Hill Farmstead Brewery, owned by Sean Hill, started making beers in that same style, and he had a little more presence. And then he started saying, well, if you like what I'm doing, I'm just copying the Alchemist Heady Topper, you should drink that. And then the Alchemist Heady Topper went absolutely ridiculously huge in the US from about, say, 2008, 2009, right through to about 2015. And that's, I would assume, when Blindman started dialing and making a New England Pale to release in 2017. So it's a very new style, but maybe not as new as a lot of people think. It's been about 15 years for this style being something that exists. So that's a little bit of our history tasting. And that gives us a good baseline with the Blindman. Let's take on our first challenger here. This is a year-round beer. Actually, everything we're doing here are year-rounds. I didn't do any one-offs. I didn't do any seasonals. I didn't do any crazy barrel-aged or anything else. I actually didn't even use a Queek yeasted beer. I wanted these to be as similar as I could None of them actually bill themselves as being a IPA or a double IPA or a triple IPA like Cabin Starburst, or a sour New England Pale Ale like the Zero Issue, or Colt 45 New England Pale Ale like this one here. There's lots of variations on this New England Pale Ale style, but I wanted to keep it very classic and keep it as fair as I possibly could. So let's jump into the establishment here. Now again, very hazy, very cloudy, very classic. I get more pine here than I did on the Blindman. More shades of like West Coast hops than I would have expected necessarily. I don't have a tech sheet for these. I didn't want to kind of bore you with infinite facts on any of these. I just wanted to let the beers speak for themselves, because I wanted to give them as much of a chance to be just what's in the can, not words on a page. So this is really going to be about the beer that's in the can. If you find this a little light on facts, I apologize. We have definitely featured all of these beers in depth at one point or another over the last year or so. I wanted it just to be about the liquid in the glass. Definitely a touch more bitterness, I think, to this one. But then that flaked oats, that rich, almost cream of wheat mouthfeel just coats the mouth more so than the Blindman. I think the Blindman has more tropical fruit, at least on the first taste. I think I get more of a West Coast style on the Afternoon Delight. Yeah, Afternoon Delight has been year-round. It may have started out as a seasonal, but I think in the time that we've been carrying Establishment, which was about 8 months, 9 months after they opened, I think Afternoon Delight's been a regular year-round listing for them since then. I want to jump to Heather's comment here about how when she was an IPA noob a few years ago, the Blindman New England Pale tasted so bitter. I think that's one of the real great tricks of the hazy IPA movement, because they aren't so heavily boiled. Or at least they aren't so heavily boiled with hops in the boil. The actual bitterness component of these compared to a classic West Coast IPA is much, much lower, and that makes the level of beer know-how, or the kind of the beer geek cutoff point for something like this versus something like, say, Central City Red Racer IPA with its incredible bitterness, is much easier to get your head around. And I think that these appeal more to younger beer drinkers. I didn't sell a lot of IPAs or double IPAs before the hazy craze came out to people who were under 25. Do we have some 19-year-old hopheads? Absolutely we did. But by and large, it was more so to people who've been drinking beer for a few years. I think now with the hazies, because the bitterness has dropped a little bit, it's opened the IPA category up to more people. So that's an interesting point. But I made the special little sticker that said New England Pale Ale for the Colt 45 myself. When I had to do that. Actually, the reason for that is I was actually casting about a little bit to look for a bad example of a New England IPA, because one of the things I did want to talk about just a little tiny bit is how ubiquitous this style has become. Everyone and their mum makes a freaking New England Pale now. There are a handful of breweries. Central City, I think, still doesn't make a New England Pale, or at least they haven't made one I wanted to drink yet. But there's a lot of bad breweries that don't care about New England Pales, that are making hazy pale ales and hazy IPAs, and they're doing it because they feel they have to, and the beers are really quite bad. I'm actually rather pleased the fact that we didn't have anything I really hated. But there are lots of them out there. It's become such an essential style that every brewery must have one, that breweries that are either A, not very good on their face, or B, don't care about this style at all and don't want to make hazy IPAs. They make one because they have to survive. It's kind of like how a lot of micro distilleries, they make a gin. Their passion is whiskey. They're going to be a whiskey distillery. That's their business model. But whiskey takes time to age, so to start you have to make gin, no matter how much you don't care about gin. And I think that's for a lot of these breweries. You know, we want to be this lager-focused brewery, but we also need to eat, so therefore we will make an IPA. Yeah, Sean makes a good point. The Skyrockets come and go. They have a different edition numbers. Afternoon Delight just remains as Afternoon Delight. I don't know if the recipe is always fixed. Knowing establishment, I would be surprised if the recipe hadn't floated around a little tiny bit. But no, it's not editioned like Skyrocket. This is probably, of their hoppy beers, the most stable, consistent, year-round version that they have. Because the Skyrocket goes through different editions. And call me out if I'm wrong here, Aaron, but I think every other IPA and double IPA that they do is a seasonal. I don't think they have another hoppy beer in like their core stable range. 'Cause I think the rest of the range is just My Best Friend's Girl, Jamrock, Fat Sherpa in the winter, and I'm probably missing one.
Yes, that's probably correct.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I don't actually know. It's close.
Papaya is a good call. I like that. Beck, yes, I've been told women tend to prefer IPAs because of their different palates. Any thoughts on this? Two thoughts. I would disagree in the sense that I think that in terms of our sales in our store, the craft beer style that brought women fully into the fold more so than any other was sours. That's not to say I don't have really good women IPA customers or just craft beer customers in general. I most certainly do. But I think the biggest like welcoming moment, like welcome to the club, was sours, like to a ludicrous degree. I will say that I think that hazy IPAs perhaps sell better to women than classic West Coast, but that would also be true to say that 95% of the IPA market is hazy IPAs, and women have really only been a huge part of the craft beer sales, at least for our shop, post hazy IPA coming out, and since sours have become a huge thing, so naturally they would go to the dominant IPA style that was out right at the time, which was hazy. So I think the jury's out on that one. But I would say if you put it right to me, I think that the big style that brought more women than any other style into the craft beer movement, it would be sours. If you were in New England, what would the best New England pale ale be? I mean, if you're in this part of the world, you have to go see Sean Hill Farmstead. They're just an unbelievable brewery. If you wanted to call them like the Russian River of the Northeast, they're very much that. If you're in that part of the world, like you're right where Dogfish Head is, Sam Calagione is still an absolutely incredible brewmaster. I haven't had anything Dogfish Head because they haven't been in Alberta for like 3-4 years now, so I haven't had them in a few years. But Dogfish Head remains absolutely spectacular. While you're there, you should try the Alchemist Heady Topper, literally the beer that invented the style. That's definitely worth your time. And a bit of a dark horse, Southampton Brewing Company, who at least the last time I saw was still only brewing things in these big 750 ml glass bombers. They make, I'm pretty sure my favorite Saison that I've ever had was made by Southampton. They've made some absolutely killer IPAs as well. They have effectively no distribution outside like their immediate area. The only bottles I've had I've traded for with people for like local cool stuff from here. They're not rare in their local area, but they're really only distributed within like 100 kilometers, 100 miles of the brewery. So that would be something I'd look out for as well, because those guys make absolutely fantastic beer. And I miss Dogfish Head too. So for me, better nose, better palate. I just like the little touch of extra bitterness on the Afternoon Delight for me, but that's pretty even. If I'm gonna give one the nod, it's just gonna be the Afternoon, and only by a hair, and it's just because it has that little bit more snap to it. It's got a little more meanness, that West Coast note to it. That one could really go either way. That's a coin flip for me. Aaron, your choice between the two?
AD.
Going for the Afternoon Delight?
Yeah.
All right. Well, no rest for the wicked. Let's get on to beer number 3, the 88 Night Gallery Hazy Pale. Like everything else on the table, this is a core beer for them. This is the beer I think I've most frequently seen on tap from them. This is one of 3 newly 4 hazy hoppy beers. I shouldn't say hazy, hoppy beers in their lineup. So there is the Night Gallery Hazy Pale. There's of course their Wave Pool Tropical IPA. There is their Ring Pop Queek IPA. And then brand new, as of 2 days ago, Hammer Pants West Coast Pale Ale is now going to be replacing the hologram hopped wheat in the lineup as another core beer for them. So that is the case kind of going forward. Hologram will return as a seasonal, but if you're a big hologram fan like I am, you might want to come in and pick some up, because what we have is probably all we're going to have till the end of summer. So yeah, Hammer Pants brand new. Will be on the beer tasting next week, don't worry. But that is now a new core beer, at least temporarily, for 88. And yeah, Grant, nice call, pineapple-ish. And like, pineapple upside down cake. This smells sweeter than the other two. Yes, I picked up, actually Jesse dropped off Hammer Pants for us on Thursday last week, but we couldn't talk about it, we couldn't mention it, we couldn't sell it. We just had to sit on it till Monday, because that was when the brewery released it. So thank you 88 for having that faith in us. We didn't talk about it or pour it or anything until Monday. We did release it Monday morning the same time they did. But yes, we do have Hammer Pants already.
Hammer Pants.
Ooh. Peaches. Yeah, peaches is a great call, Heather. Thank you. Peaches, pineapple. It's a very different fruit profile than these two. And this is much more that juicy IPA, I think, than either of the other two. These two really tasted more like, not a white IPA, but you could kind of see that wheat oats influence. This is just like juice. And they even say cloud juice on the back. Yeah, it's cloudy juice. This is... I think this is the style that the Big Hat was really going for, and I think leaned too far, kind of went all dataless and flew too close to the sun, and yeah, that no, that didn't work for me. This does though. I like how juicy this is. Yeah, cloud juice is a perfect descriptor for this. I like this quite a bit. I'm also enjoying how different these 4 beers, or at least the first 3, are from each other, considering they're kind of, for us at least, probably our 4 big market leaders for this style. So I'm glad that they're all just different enough from each other that we can appreciate it. And Milkshake IPA, that's an interesting conversation. Milkshake IPA versus smoothie sour versus any of that. Milkshake was really just a hazy IPA with lactose added. I find that sweetness in beer is getting to me more and more. The more I drink beer, I find that the sweetness just builds and builds, and I get very tired of it very quickly. I can appreciate a milk stout. I've had some sours with lactose that are kind of doing this sweet and sour thing that I can really get into. I want my IPAs drier as a rule. The very short-lived Brute IPA, which lasted a summer, like 2 summers ago, 3 summers ago, I really liked those for just how parchingly dry they were. I don't want my beer that sweet or that candy sweet. And I think one of the early days of this New England Pale Ale style, I think they started out a lot sweeter, because a lot of people said, well, we'll just take our West Coast IPA, we'll add all the hops at the end. Well, that doesn't work, because you're starting with a very sweet base with a West Coast IPA for the most part, because you know you're going to have all of that big bitterness to balance it out. If you take a West Coast IPA malt base, it's going to be so candy sweet, and then you're not adding any bitterness to balance it. You're just going to end up with really sweet, malty, hoppy juice, which won't work for anyone. I like that this has a little less bitterness. I like how juicy it is, but I still appreciate how dry it is. I found Milkshake IPAs too sweet as a rule. And yeah, pastry stout's super sweet. I think most people understand that We are not big pastry stout fans here. There are exceptions. I really like to cut the cake from establishment. I really like the Nanaimo bar from 88. I did not enjoy all the things. Which, by the way, we are doing our 1 year 50th tasting anniversary special next week. I did actually try to get all the things just for a laugh to throw in there, but it was tragically sold out at the supplier. This doesn't taste like the old Night Gallery bar smelled. I think that's the highest praise you could really give of anything. It doesn't smell like dried pea. Yeah, Eric brings up an interesting point. Less depth to it than the other two, and you're right. I think that this is a lot of like fireworks and fun right at the start with all the tropical fruit and mango and pineapple and everything right up front. And then it kind of drops off, which is interesting because it's the same alcohol as the Blindman. It's actually a tenth of a point more than the afternoon. But you're right. It finishes clean and pleasant. It leaves me wanting another sip. But yeah, I think both of these maybe had more of a finish. Difference in style as much as anything else. Very, very much that New England style, though. That persistent, lingering bitterness isn't so much a thing. And yes, very different design philosophies between the very 70s aesthetic of Cabin, the very 80s aesthetic of 88, and the watercolors aesthetic of Establishment, which I quite like. I like the disparity between these. And then Blindman, who's like, but we're here. We did this white and green thing that everybody loved. We established the whole style.
Aesthetically, it's great.
I think it's a sharp-looking beer can.
Yeah.
But I mean, Supersat, I have Supersat socks. I mean, I love this look. I have a Supersat hat.
Yeah, it looks like a vest.
It looks great. I love this color combination. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a ski vest from 1976.
Yeah, Heather, I mean, I really liked the yard too. I like that they kept changing the flavor up. Like they had blackberry the yard, they had pineapple the yard, they had strawberry the yard. And those were really cool. And then they just said, well, pineapple sells okay. Let's just keep making that. I don't know, Hell's Basement, I don't know exactly what happened with that, but it seems like they just kind of decided good enough was good enough, and then they just stuck with their recipes. They got rid of the Radiant IPA, which I think was actually their best beer. Yeah, I don't know. I still love Rise Against the Machine. I still think that's probably the best brown ale we sell in Alberta, or very close. Probably because it's closer to a brown porter than it is a brown ale. But yeah, I don't know. Hell's Basement just kind of, they were doing really well and then they just stopped, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Seriously.
And Sean's comment that the 4 beers on the table are doing, I will say, like, I would struggle with moving away from Alberta because I will say that we kind of have this super cool underground beer scene that people are just starting to recognize. I'm kind of thinking, getting vibes like Montana 10, 12 years ago, where, you'd occasionally see like Missoula pop up in like the 10 best beer cities in the US list after like, Portland and Chicago and oddly enough, Tampa Bay. Missoula would often show up in those lists and be like, what the hell's happening in Montana? Tons was happening in Montana at the time. It was absolutely fantastic. I think Alberta's starting to get a lot of that sneaky beer cred where we don't really ship any of this outside Alberta, so there's not a lot of hype outside the province. But I think we're getting there. Cabin's the CBC of can design. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. That is a timeless design.
I got something for him.
Yeah?
Yeah. Fading in now. We'll get there.
I'll get there. It takes time for me. Also, wow, a lot of viewers tonight. That's fantastic. Oh, that looks slick. Yeah.
Like, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the classic, a little bit more bitterness, all the juice. Which way is it going to go from here for the super saturation? I mean, yeah.
Oh, you're still in.
I'm still in the I always, if I go too fast, I get people like, oh, Kyle, you're sure burning through them tonight. Well, I'm going to take my time enjoying my cloud juice, thank you. Daughter creative, eh? Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about what we have coming up next week, and well, I think we have something pretty fun for you folks. We're going to do a little bit of a retrospective, but it's a little bit more than that too. Now, the obvious thing, apart from the fact that that Sunshine Rain can is dented as hell because I dropped it earlier today, which is why it's my can, is that there's 6 beers. Now, don't be afraid. We are still charging the exact same $20 for the lineup as we ever do. Because thank you for hanging out with me on Wednesday nights for a year. The least I can do is like make it something really cool for you in terms of number of beers, if nothing else. But I also think we have lessons I learned in this last year. You know, we carried Annex for the better part of like 2.5, 3 years before I ever brought in Good Authority. And when we actually tasted at the Annex tasting, my big takeaway from the Annex tasting was like, holy shit, Good Authority's great. This is fantastic. Part-time model I always loved, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how much I learned to love like well-made lagers as long as they weren't, you know, adjuncted to hell. Beers like Helles, German Pils, Czech Pils, the part-time model. I've learned so much about lager. It's something that I really wanted to talk more about as a retrospective point, just because this I enjoyed so much. The next 2 beers are what I call shame on all of you, because I think that the actual best beer in Cabin's lineup of core beers is not Retrospectrum, as much as it looks like an awesome 1970s van. It's not Supersat, despite the fact it's probably a best-selling beer. It's not Zen Garden Lager. It's actually Sunshine Rain, kind of the ignored, never talked about IPA that I really love. Of all of the Cabin beers, when I go to Cabin, I'll have like a glass of whatever's new, whatever's different, whatever they're not going to be able to give us down here. None of a Sunshine Rain, because I absolutely love it. And it barely sells, and I just wanted to feature it because it's a beer I adore. Same thing with Tainted Love. I absolutely loved this when it came out. I bought an absolute mountain of it. I thought it was going to be a runaway hit. We still have a good chunk of that mountain sitting in the back. We also have growlers of it. I loved this, and it didn't sell. And I kind of want to revisit to be like, okay, what the hell? I've got a really good crowd of people who really love beer. Why didn't this sell? You tell me, because I'm curious. Because I want to know, I think these rule. I have the story, and I have the sales numbers to back up that everybody else doesn't apparently agree with me. Why aren't these selling? Because I think that's a fun conversation. And this is a little bit of a shout back to the wine tasting where it was like my greatest mistakes. That was really fun. I wanted to kind of have a mini version of that. Lastly, this is just fun. I mean, it's new stuff. New stuff's always great. Hammer Pants is out. I have had it. It's fantastic. It's a West Coast pale. I don't want to, jump in too much against like the Night Gallery because I really like Night Gallery, but like no comparison. Give me the West Coast over the East. I absolutely adore Hammer Pants. I can't wait to taste this with you. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And then finally, screw it. Footered Honey Brown. Now, footers are giant wooden open-top fermentation vessels. I love the footering program at Blindman. They've done so many of their like glass bottled out of these footers. They've done a lot of high-end stuff out of them. But they're doing a Honey Brown lager, like Sleeman's Honey Brown, a style that I absolutely cannot stand. But all right, Blindman, you think you can do one that'll impress me? Let's find out. If they can't do a Honey Brown, the Honey Brown style is just not worth redeeming. It's just trash, and we'll never talk about it again. But I will give Honey Brown one last chance to not suck. And if there's anybody I trust to do that, it's going to be Blindman. So we'll see how that goes. Now, wine tasting. We are not doing anything this Friday. So corporate year end was March 31st, April 1st, which means that the Thursday where I would normally spend the entire day filling little bottles full of scotch would have been like April 2nd. No, Just quite frankly, no. Actually, would have been April 1st. I had lots of year-end stuff to do, so we are not doing a spirits tasting this Friday, simply because I couldn't spare the time with year-end and everything else. So we are taking a week off this Friday night, but we are right back at it next Friday. We're going to jump into Sauvignon Blanc. Now, I wanted to get to this event right at the tail end of last summer, but we were just starting to roll into spirits tasting. Again, my memory is rarely perfect, but I do believe that this tasting, basically in its current form, got bumped in favor of the very first fall Scotch tasting, I think. So, Sauvignon Blanc, it's finally warm enough to do it. When I say Sauvignon Blanc, you're probably going to say New Zealand, and rightfully so. That's where most of the Sauv Blanc that most people drink comes from. And as a result, we have the Astrolabe. This comes in from a company called Dream Wines. Dream Wines just does really good stuff at any price point, and this is kind of their $20-ish New Zealand Sauv Blanc. It's great. It's a really good reference of what New Zealand Sauv Blanc is. And then we'll talk about why New Zealand Sauv Blanc is so stylistically similar. But of course, Sauvignon Blanc didn't originate in New Zealand. It started in France. We're going to do the Domaine de Haute-Bourg. This is a Loire Valley Sauvignon Blanc, which along with Bordeaux is one of the two homes of the grape in France. Then we'll jump into some more interesting stuff. There's lots of different Sauv Blancs we could do. Not the United States, because American Sauvignon Blanc is awful and we'll never talk about it apart from how we make fun of it. But Italy actually has some really great Sauvignon Blanc, especially up on the far northeast, in Friuli and in the Collio Hills, right on the kind of Italo-Slovenian border. So we'll be talking about the Thierry Collio Sauvignon Blanc from Friuli. And then finally, we're going to jump into Australia, Western Australia. So soil and climate-wise, that has more to do with South Africa than it does the rest of Australia. Devin and I tasted this estate about 2 weeks ago, and we brought in their Chardonnay that's, well, it's in here, so it's like $40. But we also tasted like the entry-level Semsov, and it's special. Like, it's really special. This is an absolute cracker of a Sauv Blanc. Maybe my favorite wine under $30 retail that I've had from Australia in like 2-3 years. This is fantastic stuff, and if anything, this is kind of the wine that got us on the train of doing this tasting. So, first all white tasting of the summer. We'll get to that in 2 Fridays. All right. It is super saturation and watching me read comments time, because I've seen the comments going a little bit nuts, so. I hope you'll forgive me for 2 seconds here while I get through your comments. Oh wow, so many comments. So many comments, all right. Yeah, anniversary tasting is going to be great. Super fun. Last class bash. Yes, please.
Oh my god. Kill me.
Jeremy's just in for a 4-pack of each. Just screw it. That seems reasonable. That's just a flat of beer. Also, we had exactly enough of those 6-pack pack techs to do 6 flats of tasting kits, plus the one for me with my dented can. So if we have to go for extras, which we probably will, they'll be in bags. But the initial run at least has 6-pack pack decks. Yeah, that is the one with the "why the hell is this here" sign. That's exactly right. The Thierry Collio, which we couldn't sell Sauvignon Blanc from any country other than New Zealand. So we shoved the Thierry Collio in the New Zealand section because it was so good. And I knew if I stuck with the Italian wines, no one would ever buy it. So we shoved it in the New Zealand section with this big sign that said, "Hey, here's why I'm here. I'm great. I'm like the best Sauv Blanc in the store for the money, but I'm not from New Zealand, so if I'm not right here, you won't buy it. You should buy me because I'm great." And it turned out to be a huge hit for us. It was absolutely fun. Okay, so super saturation. Off the nose reminds me most of the Afternoon Delight, I think. There was a little tiny bit of kind of that piney thing, a little bit more West Coast for me, similar to the Afternoon. But on the other hand, I also get more juice than any other beer except the Night Gallery. This is almost like a balance of these two beers with the juice and with the pine. Oh, I gotta say, I can see why this is such a huge hit. You know what? I think I've been underestimating this beer because it's not the summer saturation, which I dramatically do prefer. I think Somerset's one of my favorite beers of all time. And I don't know if it's the sweetest. I put it up against the Night Gallery, the Blindman. I would make an argument the Establishment's the driest. Sean says, more going on than Afternoon Delight. I'm going to tend to agree with you. Yeah, and I'm right exactly where Jeremy is. I knew it was good. I knew it sold really well. I knew it was like their staple beer. I have the hat and the socks. This is a bit of a revelation for me. Like, even against the best competition we can throw at it, this owns. Like, this is really good. And I do get some malt. I think Craig makes an interesting point, though. This has the least malt presence. No, not the least. Second least. Night Gallery probably has the least. It definitely has less malt presence than the Blindman or the Establishment. But yeah, it's special. And yes, thank you to everyone who bought us out of single saturation. We may have slightly overbought on those, but we're out of them now. Thank you for everybody who took advantage of the sale and got us out of those, because yeah, we had a little bit of that, and it's gone now. So thank you to all of you. And yeah, that was one of my favorite tastings last year. I hope they do it again, because I will absolutely do that again. Just exactly how it was. No shame, no judgment. Just going to do it again, because that was fun. But yeah. Aaron, you been through all four now?
Yep.
Where are you coming down on this? You got a winner for us?
Let me get through this one.
All right.
Yep.
Yep. No, that's fair. It's a really close competition.
This is good.
It's really good.
This is good.
It's better than I thought it was.
I knew it was good, but how good is the question? You know,
And that's just it. We've got...
comparatively. I mean, it's hard because things get befuddled when you've got them all right in front of you.
We have our first rating. We have Deirdre at Night Gallery, Afternoon, Blindman, and Supersat.
Interesting.
Yep. Will there be a blooper reel to go with the anniversary tasting? Aaron?
Are there 25 hours in a day? I sure wish there were.
I mean, we could do
So
something.
probably.
Yeah, we could do something.
Yeah, I can probably.
If nothing else, we can run
blooper reel. What do
all
you
the
wanna see?
well, we can run the all the things. What else would you want to see again? Like, I want to do the all the things. Like,
Yeah,
from the
you make
moment
a
of the
list.
first sip, I want to see the all the things
Y'all make
thing.
a list in the comments here, and I'll go dig it all up and see what I can do. Eh? How's that sound?
That seems reasonable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fine.
What are your favorite moments in the last year there, Aaron?
Well, I always get a giggle out of you having to run off camera to go pee. That rules for me. Anyway.
I was going to say the promo with the crows, the fish and crows.
Oh, I sure had a lot of fun with the promos. Yeah, that's the promos this year for me have been like absolute like a pure joy. Some are obviously a lot more basic. It depends on how much time I can give. But when I've got just enough, or I'm just in the right mood.
Yo, I think my favorite promo last year, as much as I enjoyed the crows, was actually the one for a tasting that probably nobody remembers because it wasn't all that interesting a tasting.
Right.
But the wheat ales tasting, where you
Oh, yeah.
planted the beers
I
and you
did
did all in
plant the
stop
beers.
motion.
Yeah, yeah.
That was absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
maybe we'll do a greatest.
We should do a
few
greatest hits of
things.
some of the promos.
Yeah, we'll play a supercut just for my own ego, and we'll dig up some nice bloopers from the tastings are hard. So I mean, like because they're an hour long, but.
Every F-bomb. The customer who came in when we were closed. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, the customer came when we were closed. That was something. The All the Things name drop supercut, I don't hate Aaron that much because that is so many hours to get through. That's like hours and hours and hours because I've name dropped it, I think, in every beer tasting since. I'm not going to make Aaron go through that. That's...
Yeah, we need an intern. We got a lot of professors
Oh,
here,
God,
right?
the barley
How about a
wine
research
tasting.
Intern, hey? What do we
We
think?
should have a research intern, for sure. And the barley wine tasting.
Any new media professors in the audience?
And selling the bottles to the tasting table. I think I gave those away, technically. I felt bad. That was from the mezcal tasting.
Oh yeah.
And
that was pretty
we'd
good.
oversold it, and the guy came in like looking for his mezcal tasting. We're like, well, we sold all your stuff, and we just gave him the bottles.
The dog heads,
The dog
yeah.
heads,
Gave
yeah,
him the dog
exactly.
heads, yeah.
Yeah, we had some moments over the last year. Yeah, we'll dig into that. We'll do what we can. We're not going to go through all the hours of footage because at 2 tastings a week for a year, that's a lot of footage. But we got some things we can dig up. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that what's his name there?
Oh, from Averill Creek,
Right.
Brett Rowland.
Brent.
That was fun when he didn't know he was on the TV.
Yeah.
Having Craig Coburn back as a guest.
Okay.
That could be interesting. I mean, if Craig's up for it, I'm up for it. That'd be a fun thing to do for our anniversary.
Yeah, sure. Was that Scotch, or was that beer?
I think that was beer. I think it was the very first in fact, I know it was the very first Pilsner's event we did. And Craig did way more research than he needed to, and then I basically didn't let him talk for the whole hour because I just can't shut up in front of a camera. And he was just like, oh God, why did I do all this work? The cow picture in my kitchen. Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We made some gold.
we've made some gold. Okay. We've had some rankings coming down that are more serious. I do want to pay attention to these. The first was Deirdre's. The second was Craig's. Craig actually goes the opposite direction. He has Super Saturation first. Afternoon, Night Gallery and Blindman. Cool. John just goes straight down the table at 4, 3, 2, 1. And also John and Marina. Sorry, John and John with an H, both go down this way, so yeah. Terry has 4, 1, 3, 2. Seeing a lot of 4 for somebody who finished dead last the first time. Kevin has 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 3, 1. I'm seeing a lot of the blind men finishing last, and I kind of thought just the idea of this was this is the beer that started the style. Has it kept up? I think it's kept up, but maybe it needs like a Blind Man New England Pale Ale V2.
I think so too. I drank a ton of that stuff when it first came out, and I don't buy it a whole lot now.
Nor do I.
I totally got burned out on it, right? Like
I think there's some of that too.
the
We all
flavor
did.
is incredibly consistent. It's like the same from when we first started buying it. Like that recipe is bang on still, and it's delightful when.
I'm actually going to try and go back to it here.
Sure.
No, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a matter of a bit of fatigue.
Is it fatigue, or has the market changed? Are new competitors maybe doing it a little tighter, a little fresher? You know what? Going back, I will say, it still smells fantastic. Like it. If anything, it smells at the very end more West Coast than anything else. When I first got into this, I really didn't get any West Coast notes at all. But now I'm getting some of those kind of cannabis-y, stinky, woodsy things. Excuse me, cannabis, stinky, woodsy things. Oh man, every hiccup in the channel. Yeah, God.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be our tasting with our 2-hour supercut of every time I've hiccuped up on the channel. Great. That'll be good TV.
Turn.
But yeah, no, I don't know, I'm curious, how many people have this ranked last, or in the bottom 2 anyway? I think it kind of answers a little bit of our question. Yes, I think it maybe has lost a step. Does it belong in this table? Does it belong in this conversation? Absolutely.
Valid.
Yeah, it's absolutely in this range. Is it still consistently turning up in the top 2, or even as the clear-cut winner, like it would have when it first came out? No. It's a world-class New England IPA, but just like I think Sean brought up, Alberta, we're still here for the beer. And because we bought a house and a business here. But yeah, it's still great. And if this is going to finish last overall in the night, that's a great thing for the Alberta beer industry, that a beer that defined the entire style for everyone is A, still relevant, but B, the market's even better 4 years later. I think that's a very positive thing.
Catalyst ripple effect.
Yeah. John Duncan joining right at the very end, just as I'm wrapping up making my final point. Welcome, John. Yeah, it's maybe less dialed in. And that's an interesting point. It's softer, less sharp. I think all of these others kind of know what they want to be. These guys just want to be juicy as hell. These guys are happy to go a little bit sweeter to just give you more like bright fruit. These guys are saying, okay, the Blindman, but let's make it a little more West Coast, a little more stank, a little more dank. They're all taking this, which I guarantee you all of these brewmasters drank probably quite a lot of when they were creating these beers. This was the reference sample for all of these. All of these beers follow, all these breweries followed this beer. And then they all said, okay, this is our starting point. How can we make it different? And they made it their own, and perhaps they made a little more focused version of that idea, which as a good brewmaster you should. I don't know, I'd like to see, maybe we'll see a new Blindman New England version, or maybe Blindman will come out with the ultimate honey brown. I mean, I fucking doubt it, I hate honey brown. But, you know, at least they're doing new things, and I can't wait to see what Blindman comes out with next. I adored their tiny cans of Imperial Stout.
Yep.
Blindman continues to absolutely kill it. Yeah, no slant on Blindman. I just like to see something new.
Maybe they should have just been immune from ranking.
Maybe they should have been immune from ranking, but no, you know what, that wasn't the purpose of the exercise. The purpose of the exercise was, I was fully okay with coming in here and doing this, and Blindman just, you know, showing all the new kids on the block how it's done. Like, nope, I'm still king of the hill. I was completely open to that happening, because this is a beer that's still very, very good.
I also like how we're calling it an exercise now.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of beer tonight, Aaron. And, you know, I did have an idea behind all this at the end of the day. I mean, there are the ones where I completely phone it in. It's just like, let's taste new stuff and find a theme that we pull out of our ass. That happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes they end up being our best tastings. Yeah. But no, this one I actually did want to not only do this, but I actually wanted to start this of, you know, hey, we're going to do Pilsners. This is the first, like, big Italian Pils, like, let's say Pontificato. And I'm pulling that up only because Annex's Summer Seasonal is called Idle Hands. It's also an Italian Pils. And I would say that Pontificato now at this point is such a reference beer for a lot of people that if Annex and 88 and Cabin all have an Italian Pils out at the same time, damn right we're doing this exercise again, and we're comparing everything to Pontificato because that's the reference beer. So this isn't a challenge or a tasting concept we're going to see all the time, but when we have a lineup of 4 beers that kind of start with the last 10 minutes just be our brew. Yeah, well, we have our moments, don't we? But I'm told the meta moments are the complete insanity moments are the ones people keep coming back for.
Absolutely.
So, well, you know, we do what we can. Ooh, Eric asked, has Long Shadows ever been a part of the tasting?
No.
I don't think it has, and that's a bloody tragedy. No, we must have done that when we did the Blindman week, like really early on. I would have not, I can't imagine I did that without Long Shadows.
IPA. I think so.
I think we did. I think it was early,
Yeah.
but I think when we did the Blindman week, my memory right now is that we did the Pils, the Session Ale, the NEPA, and Long Shadows, I think.
Right.
I'll happily stand corrected, but I think that was the order at the time. Actually, you know what would be fun? Long Shadows and Wave Pool both kind of build themselves as no-coast IPAs. They're kind of a little bit of east, a little bit of west.
Yeah.
Bent Stick came out, I think their current IPA season is actually called Art Teacher's Office, the super dank IPA.
Yeah.
But they've done a no-coast IPA. I wonder if we could actually... Yeah. All right, I should probably come down to a ranking for myself. It's going to be the superset, and color me surprised. I did not expect that to be my number 1. 2 is going to be Afternoon Delight. I like the little bit of West Coast notes in it. I mean, you probably saw me ranking that number 1. Me, the giant establishment super fan with the establishment glass. But I like that style. These 2 are really close for me. And I'm really sorry, Blindman. But it's going to be the Night Gallery by a hair just because it's so joyful and easy to drink and just so juicy. And I really love it for that. The Blindman remains an excellent beer, but it's also my number 4. And it's not by a lot. I think my top 2 are very close. My bottom 2 are very close, but there's a bit of a gap between the 2. You got a final rankings for us, Aaron?
Yep. I'm doing 4. Wait a minute. Yeah, 4, 2, 1, 3.
So we're quite similar.
4213.
Yep. Oh, I like that Prairie IPA. And I actually agree with Craig. Weird. Yeah. I think we'll wrap her up there, Aaron. It's been a lot of fun. We will see everybody for our 1-year anniversary spectacular. We'll have some blooper reel. We may have a special guest. We'll see how it all shakes out. It's just going to be a fun night drinking 6 beers with some people that we've gotten to know pretty well over the last year, all together. You know, it's been a lot of fun. So it may not be the most technical tasting. We're certainly not going to have maps or super maps or any of that. Probably not a brewery tour, but
All Alberta.
I believe it is all Alberta. It's actually just
super maps. It would be boring.
it would be really boring. So here's Calgary again.
Here's Calgary.
Beer number 6. This is Calgary again.
Calgary.
But no, it is all Calgary basically, and then one Blindman. But again, that was also a little bit by choice of the breweries that really kind of helped us out the most. I mean, Annex bent over backwards to give us anything we needed this year. This is something I was going to get into next week, but I'll just briefly mention it now. Cabin, 88, Establishment, Blindman, Annex, they've all supported this weekly beer tasting. Like, Kyle, whatever you need. Anything you want a guest, you want anything. Well, not Cabin, they still haven't been on the damn show. But everybody else has just said, anything you want, anything you need, we'll make it happen. And while Cabin hasn't appeared, when I wanted to feature one of their beers on the channel and it was not something that they were going to release, they'd at least give us like 2 flats so we could do a tasting with it. So maybe they haven't come on like in person because they're very busy or whatever. But they have actually supported us in the background quietly, so they've been very good to deal with. So I wanted to support our friends who've been very good to us. Anyway, yeah, enjoy your hangover next Thursday. We are done for tonight. I'm Kyle. This has been Aaron, and have a wonderful night, everyone. Good night.